I'm often asked by clients what makes for a good or successful personal injury case. So in thinking about doing this blog, I thought I'd ask a defense attorney, a civil defense attorney, who has practiced for 40 years and is a very well-regarded attorney, and that's John Johnson. So I'll put the question to you, John. What do you feel is important when you are on the other side of a plaintiff? What kinds of things are you looking for?
Well, the first time I generally encounter a plaintiff is at a deposition. That is, personally come face-to-face with a plaintiff. And I think a deposition is important because it gives me, on the defense side, a chance to look at the plaintiff, try to figure out, do I believe what the plaintiff's saying? Do I have questions about what the plaintiff's saying? And some of that goes to how the plaintiff is reacting or behaving through the deposition. Now, certainly you can come across some plaintiffs who are going to be very nervous at a deposition, and then nervous because of the process. They're not familiar with the deposition. They've never been involved with a deposition before, so consequently they're nervous about it. On the other hand, you might find some plaintiffs who are nervous because the story that they're going to tell is an exaggeration, perhaps, of exactly what happened to them, and therefore it's up to me to try to figure out which is, if it's nervousness, which side do I fall on? Is the person just exaggerating, or is the person just nervous about the process?
Are there other documents or things that you use to assess or judge the value of a case?
Well, I think important documents include the hospital records that recite what treatment and care a plaintiff has received as a result of the accident. The hospital records often tell a really good story to a defense attorney as to what happened, because those are the records that relate to treatment received by a plaintiff immediately or very soon after an accident. And the people interviewing the plaintiff in the hospital, the caretakers, whether it's the ambulance attendants who respond to the scene of an accident, or people in the hospital who treat the plaintiff as soon as the plaintiff arrives, the information given to those caretakers often tells a story, exactly what happened. And as you go down the trail, sometimes plaintiffs, whether it's because of a change of memory or forgetfulness or whatever, they change the story. The story changes a little bit, and you can go back to those hospital records that immediately follow the accident and get a true story. And from a defense point of view, I can use those later on. If a person does try to change a story or does forget about exactly how an accident happened, you can use those to either refresh the person's memory or to show that the person is exaggerating now further down the road.
Exaggerating brings to mind this concept that we were talking to before we started the blog, talking about, and that is overreaching. I often tell my clients you don't want to overreach. Could you give us your perspective on the whole notion of a plaintiff, that is a person suing, overreaching?
I think a person who overreaches in their capacity as a plaintiff is just dooming his or her case, because I think a jury can see through something like that. If a person, for instance, let's take a situation where a person loses her personal property or her home, his or her home, whatever, and they try to overreach in terms of explaining what was in the house or what they lost, and they exaggerate on that. Oftentimes it's very easy to, through lists of what was in the house, etc., to show that this person is exaggerating, that this person couldn't possibly have had that or those products or that personal property in the house. And therefore, once that comes out, I think a jury looks at that person and says, well, we can't believe anything that person says. So I don't think you should ever overreach from a plaintiff's point of view.
Okay, and I would concur with that. I think it creates far more problems than it's worth. And I think we can conclude this video blog, and I'll thank John. I'm much happier to be allied with him than to be on the other side of the verses, because he really is a very fine defense attorney and fine gentleman. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What was our